Hello students, Professor Shima here. I have to talk about something that might be a little sensitive, but hopefully not. But we have to have this discussion. I'm not in the classroom, we're not face to face, and this is typically something I would talk about live with you. It involves a little bit of preaching and perhaps even me being a little bit of a hypocrite because I'm going to ask you to be better than me and be better than others around you. So in other words, I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite here, but I want to talk about this thing called reneging. Okay, there it is, Reneging. Kind of an odd sounding word, and the spelling likewise is a little complicated. But basically, reneging is when you accept an offer with someone and they think that you're going to come and work for them, and then later on you renege. The process is called reneging, and you change your mind. And there have been a few isolated cases of that happening, and this isn't a WMUISM thing, it's just a college-aged thing. This happens at U of M, Michigan State, Grand Valley, all over the place, and it happens every semester, and this semester is no different. We've had a few cases of this happening, and we just want to make sure that you understand what this is, what's entailed, how it can damage you long-term professionally, the bridges that you burn, etc. So I just want to explain reneging in general. You interview with a company for an internship or full-time job, and ideally you'll be interviewing around the same time with multiple potential employers. And ideally, what you'd like to happen is get all of these job offers on the table at the same time and then make the best decision for yourself. However, it rarely happens that way. For example, you interview with 10 companies, you get 5 offers, you get them the same week, and then they give you 2 weeks to decide. That rarely happens. What often happens is you begin the interviewing process, and eventually you get an interview or start to get interviews and get job offers, and maybe a job offer comes along and they only give you 3 days to decide. Typically for internships, don't be shocked if an employer only gives you 2, 3, up to 5 days to decide. One of the reasons for that is they want to move on to their next best candidate if you decline the offer from them. So a lot of students will panic and they'll get an offer and they're not sure if they're going to get subsequent interviews and job offers. So they'll accept the job offer that they have in hand because it's the only one that they have in hand, combined with the time pressure of having to decide within 3 days, within 5 days. So they accept, and usually they accept an offer that's competitive, otherwise they wouldn't accept it in the first place. And the rule of thumb is, our code of ethics asks and requires that once you accept an offer with an employer, the interviewing process is done. You're done with it. So if you had other interviews scheduled, you call them up and you let them know, look, I have an offer from someone else and I've accepted, and you let them know that you're done with the process, and they will respect the heck out of that. They will say, hey, that's really cool. You accepted elsewhere. You're not wasting our time. You have no intentions of reneging. We really, really respect that. Let's talk down the road when you're on the job market for a full-time job or looking for another internship. So again, rule of thumb is when you get an offer and you accept it, you're done. You don't keep interviewing. You don't keep interviewing, get another offer, and then decide that that offer is more appealing to you than the one you previously accepted. All right, so again, what we don't want to happen is for an employer to think that this is what Broncos do, that this is what ISMers do. If employers extend offers to our students and the students renege on those offers, and it happens often enough, those employers will walk away from our program. And then moving forward, future Broncos will not have the opportunity to work for that company because you decided that you were going to put yourself ahead of the program and everyone else and do what was in your best interests. And the end result is that we lose that employer and all future employment opportunities with that employer for our students. So the consequences are enormous. Likewise, for you personally, if you get an offer and you renege on it for something else that comes along that's a better fit for you, keep in mind that the company that you reneged on will call up career services and let them know what happened. Then career services will let all of the ISM and supply chain faculty know what you did. My point is, You burn tons of bridges this way, and eventually other employers out there find out this network of supply chain professionals and students and programs and faculty is not entirely too large. Over a period of time, people hear about your behavior, and if you do something as self-absorbed and selfish as reneging on an offer, word gets out, and it gets out immediately within our business college to career services and other faculty. So in that situation, what we typically do is we'd contact the student, sit down with them, talk it over, try to figure out what happened, and moving forward, we're less inclined to go out of our way to help that student because of that sort of selfish behavior. Okay, here's a caveat. Let's say someone makes an offer to you, and then literally 1 day later, a few hours later, 2 days later, 3 days later, something else comes along because you do keep interviewing and you do get another offer. All right, again, if you've accepted the offer with a previous employer, you should have stopped right then and there. But let's say you've accepted, they gave you 3 to 5 days, and then someone else that you had previously interviewed with before you got that offer calls you up and extends an offer to you, and it's your dream job, dream industry, dream location, etc. Either way, we encourage students not to accept that offer that's a better fit for the student because they've already accepted elsewhere. And the only way out of that is to renege on that offer that you got elsewhere. All right, so here I am preaching to you, pretending that I'm perfect, trying to pretend that I'm not a hypocrite and I'm none of those things. What I'm trying to ask you is to maybe be better than me and others, and maybe be better and go beyond yourself in these situations. Having said that, if you're in a situation where literally you've just accepted someplace, another offer comes along shortly thereafter, and it's just really a good fit for you, and it's your dream situation. In that situation, I'm not encouraging or condoning that you renege on the original offer and previous offer, but maybe reach out to that company and ask them, hey, if I backed out of this, would you be okay? Do you have someone else in the pipeline that could get the job done that you'd be interested in? Maybe that company says, look, it's only been a day or two since you accepted. If you back out of this for something that's a better fit for you, I want you to do that and we'll be okay. So in some situations, companies are kind of cool about this, especially if they think that you're genuine and sincere and your intentions aren't rooted in complete self-absorption and selfishness. I've had students in the past get an offer, accept at the beginning of the school year, and then at the end of the school year bail on a company because something else comes along, and during that entire process of the school year kept interviewing looking for something better. They put that company in a bad situation because there's no one else in the pipeline, and that student's intentions from the beginning were not well intended. They accepted the offer on the chance that nothing else would come along, but once they accepted, they kept interviewing with the intent of bailing on the original offer if something else did come along that was a better fit for them. They were not well intended, and in those situations, employers aren't too responsive or supportive. And again, it gets back to career services and the faculty, and then moving forward, I wouldn't say we blackball people, but at the same time, why would we bend over backwards to help a student if they hold such a low regard for other students and future students in regards to the employers that recruit from our program? So again, with this thing, be careful. We do have an ISM code of ethics that basically says once you accept, you should honor it and stop with the interviewing and job selection process. But I understand that not all situations are created equal. So I think if you're well-intended, we can work our way through this. But again, you understand what reneging is at this point, so please try to avoid it. I just had a student tell me, hey Shima, I understand that me reneging on a company is not cool. It's not professional. I burn bridges. That might catch up to haunt me down the road if I'm perceived as that type of person. And then the same student asked me, hey, do companies ever renege? Okay, let me answer that question by saying, in general, when a company makes an offer to you, they will honor that offer. They're not going to back out. Companies aren't going to make offers to people and then renege and back out because word spreads very quickly, especially through social media and platforms out there such as Glassdoor.com. So a good company that wants to be around a long time and hire good people will not renege on job offers. It's just bad practice. And if they do that, then we let our students know, and that damages their brand and reputation. Similarly to how it damages your own brand if you renege on employers, because word does get out. However, it's happened. For example, a Fortune 500 company made a bunch of internships, summer internship offers to our students several years ago during the Great Recession, right before the Great Recession. And car and truck sales fell by 50% overnight in 2008 and 2009. So an automotive OEM told us, look, we told a bunch of your students that they were coming this summer to work for us in the form of an internship. We're reneging on those offers. And I told the company, this is bad news. Long term, this is going to impact you. Students aren't going to want to work for you. Short term and long term, you're sending the wrong message and signal here. And they said, we understand that, but we're in a very serious situation. I mean, we're talking, we might not be in business down the road. Also, we're laying off people that have been here 10, 20, 30 years. We're getting rid of people that have full-time jobs, that have families. And for us to say, hey, we'll bring on these interns that make 15 to 20 bucks an hour, but we're going to get rid of our full-time workforce, would have been sending the wrong message to their employees. So they said, how can we protect the jobs of interns when we're letting go of our own full-time workers? And from that standpoint, I kind of understood that was a very serious and dire situation. But at the end of the day, they did renege on those internships and offers back during the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. Likewise, COVID hit us in March, and there were a group of employers that said, look, we're going to honor these internships. You're still going to work for us. It might not be on-site face-to-face, but we'll come up with something. We'll still pay you, and we'll make sure that you get a professional work experience. Remember who those companies are. Those companies that said, we know COVID isn't going to last forever. We know it's not a long-term issue. And likewise, we're not letting go of our full-time workers. We're committed to them, and we actually need them because they can do their jobs remotely, and we're still doing business, and sometimes we're doing even more business during situations like COVID. But they also told the students that they made internships to, we will honor this, we will make it work. There were companies out there, though, that didn't. They bailed on the students. Furthermore, they bailed on them very quickly. I remember one company during the second week of March said, we're not honoring these. They didn't lay off any of their full-time workers. They didn't downsize. Business was still brisk and good. They basically said, we're not going to deal with this. We're not going to create virtual remote work experiences. We don't have the time, maybe, is what they were thinking. I'm personally disgusted that managers didn't step up to the plate and say, look, I was going to have the student come on face-to-face. I'll make this work remotely and virtually. But maybe they also were thinking, look, our employees, our full-timers are still coming in, especially for essential services like in a factory where we got to get product out the door. Maybe they don't want to deal with the liability of it all, though I don't know how much liability is associated with virtual remote work experience. But there might have been underlying circumstances like, well, the project would have to be data-driven, and then the paperwork associated with giving students access to data that was proprietary in nature that would have been handled virtually and remotely. There's just too much liability associated with that. So I don't want to be too judgmental, but at the same time, back to the student's original question, can and do employers renege? They can renege. There's usually something in the contract and the job offer that says they can do so, but it rarely happens. And the reason for that is because they don't want to damage their own brand. And they made an offer to you because they actually needed you. And unless something really bad happens that changes their need for you, like a Great Recession or COVID, they will honor it. Okay, another student question came along just when I think I'm done. Students ask questions, and they're very good ones. That's why I hate doing this behind a computer, and I prefer to be in the classroom with you. But a student asked me, a lot of employers hire our students for summer internships. And then at the end of those summer internships, if the employer liked the student and the student liked the employer, they will flip a full-time offer to the student way before they graduate. Okay? And when they do that, they will not give the student very much time to decide. So let's say you have a summer internship. You loved it, you did great, they loved you. Sometimes and often these companies will flip a full-time offer to you before the internship even ends. And they might only give you a week, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days to decide to accept a full-time offer from them that doesn't even start until another academic year. In other words, 9, maybe 12 months later. And that's called an exploding job offer. So we have one company that literally will make an offer to you before you leave your summer internship. Then you go back to school in the fall, And then during the first week of school, they want you to decide. And if you decide, they'll give you a bonus of, say, $500. That's called an exploding job offer. An exploding job offer is not illegal. Personally, I don't even think it's unethical, though some would debate that. Some students tell me, well, I'd like to play the job market. I'd like to go to the career fairs. I'd like to get a bunch of offers on the table, especially for a full-time job, because this is kind of longer term versus a summer internship, and then make the best choice possible for myself. Well, companies know that. They don't want you to play the job market. They don't want you to interview with multiple employers. They don't want to wait on you because they want to be able to move on to their next best choice or job candidate. Now, from the employer's perspective, they want to get the talent that they see as a good fit for them. And you might look at it and say, well, that's kind of selfish. Me personally, I would like to side on the side of students. And if I'm an employer, I want to hire someone that really, really wants to work for me. I don't want to hire someone where I pressure them and give them an ultimatum and say, you have a week to decide and I don't want you to play the job market. If I'm an employer, I'm saying, look, I want you and I want you to want me. Go ahead and play the job market. Get back to us in October and November. And if you've interviewed and gotten other offers on the table and then decide you want to work for us, that means that you really, really want to work for us. Otherwise, you're always going to be second guessing yourself and saying, okay, I accepted this offer because I only had a week. And do employers really want someone working for them that are always second guessing if they're working at the right place? So I would prefer employers to give students tons of time and let them make the best decision for themselves. And that way you get people that actually want to work for you. But it usually doesn't work that way. Most of our students will get exploding job offers. For internships, they don't get much time, 3 to 5 days. You would think that for full-time offers, employers would give you 2-3 weeks to decide. I rarely see that. I usually see 1 to 2 weeks, and it's usually 1 week or less. And that's just the reality of it all. And students sometimes will say, if they only give me 3 days for an internship, if they only give me a week for a full-time job, can't I more easily justify reneging if they're going to be that selfish? My answer to that is, you know this going in, and 2 wrongs don't make it right. So again, when you do this, you just burn bridges. And I say, if you accept an offer, honor it and stop with the interviewing process. But easy for me to say because I have a job that I love, that I don't plan on living, etc., etc. What would I have done when I was your age? Would I have looked out for myself and done what's best for me? Yeah, probably, maybe. I don't know. But again, my goal is for you to be better than me and others around you, and maybe be even better than yourself. Okay, I hope you've taken this entire discussion on reneging in the right spirit and in the right vein. As a college professor, there's nothing more important to me than the students and their well-being and their ability to live the American dream. So my entire discussion on reneging was I tried to say the right things that protected you the most, then also protected the program, not because I'm trying to protect myself, but by protecting the program and helping students avoid reneging, we protect future students and future employment opportunities. So I hope you took it in the right way and not in a way that basically said, hey, be better than everyone else and don't do things that's going to hurt me and the program, and I don't care about you, your future and what's in your best interest. I hope it didn't come across that way. I always try to do all of this with the intent of putting you first. And I hope it came across that way, okay? Finally, I'm going to wrap it up with a discussion on drugs and weed and THC. A year and a half ago, we had 3 students that were supposed to start internships with the same company, and all 3 failed their drug test. And they tested positive for THC, in other words, weed, marijuana, and the company said, we're not honoring the job offer that we made to you for an internship. In other words, the company wasn't reneging, the company was pulling the internship offers because they failed their drug test. Okay, so I wanted to say this, that just assume that for every employment opportunity, part-time, full-time, internship, full-time job, before graduation, after graduation, Everyone will either take a hair sample or make you pee in a cup, and they will test for drugs. Okay, I think part of the problem is that it's been legalized and or decriminalized in the state of Michigan. So a lot of students out there think that they can smoke weed, take a drug test, fail the drug test, and employers still have to hire them if they've extended an offer to them. In general, companies will interview you, extend an offer to you, and then after they extend the offer to you and you've already accepted, the final step in the process will be actually taking the drug test. It's not like you take a drug test first and then interview and then get an offer. Typically the drug test will be you go to a test site that's run by someone that they outsource to. So they make an offer to you, you accept, and then they say you have 48 hours or 24 hours to show up to a test site in your town where you will pee in a cup or they'll take a hair sample. They won't say you have 2 months, 3 months to take the drug test. They will give you 1 to 2 days tops after they've made an offer to you and you've accepted. So think about that timeline. You get an internship offer, you accept. They give you 3 days to decide. On the third day you accept the offer and they tell you, okay, you got to go to this test site to take a drug test. And you might have 24 to 48 hours to do so after you've accepted. So with that entire process, my point is, even though it's been legalized and decriminalized in the state of Michigan, at the federal level, it's still illegal. So there aren't really a lot of gray areas here. Companies can basically say, if you test positive for marijuana, weed, or THC, I can pull back the offer. I cannot hire you. Now, if you test positive, could they still hire you and bring you on? Yeah, they can. It's their choice. Okay, so I just want to throw that out there that in general, in our program, if you test positive for THC or weed, they're not going to honor the offer that they made to you and that you've accepted. Okay, I will say this: if you test positive, they could still hire you, but they could also say, I want to put you in a substance abuse program. Companies, the way I interpret it is, they could say, okay, you tested positive for marijuana, I don't want to hire you. I'm pulling back this offer, because they got tons of other people that they can make the offer to that can pass a drug test. Let's say they're looking for someone in a very technical area and they don't have lots of choices or lots of options. Let's say that person tests positive for THC. They could say, yeah, I'm going to hire you for this job, but I'm going to put you in a substance abuse program. And the reason I'm going to hire you and not hire someone else that tested positive in another area where I have tons of options and choices because it's less technical in nature, I think companies can arbitrarily decide who to bring on based on those test results, based on supply and demand conditions of the talent that they need. But that's also a gray area and probably opens themselves up to liability. But the point I'm trying to make that you're going to be competing against a lot of students for the same job opportunities. While demand exceeds supply for your skill sets, they still have other options, and their other options will include talented students that can pass a drug test. So plan accordingly. If you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, moving forward, you're now in the business college and the ISM program, and you're looking for employment opportunities. If you participate in weed and THC and marijuana, it's time to stop so that moving forward you can pass these drug tests. And if you've recently smoked and you're going to have to take a drug test, just assume you're going to fail and they're going to pull the offer on you. Okay, so again, kind of a sensitive topic and discussion, and yeah, I know we live in a world where the people that are judging you based on these test results, if you saw video clips of them in the 60s and 70s when they were in their 20s, you'd be maybe calling them hypocrites, but welcome to life. Everyone's a hypocrite. Everyone around you is, including yourself, and that's just the way it is. Okay, so that's kind of a wrap on reneging and passing drug tests. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. It's not so sensitive that we cannot talk about it. Okay?